Putting the X in success. Your employee mental health toolkit with Pluxee UK's mental health first aiders, Bhupinder Dhillon and Debbie Evans.
Hi, welcome to the latest in our Pluxee series of wellbeing podcast. Today I'm joined by my colleague Debbie, and we will be talking about mental health awareness, our role as mental health first aiders, and some of the initiatives that Pluxee do to support their employees with wellbeing. Nice to be here with you here today, Debbie. You okay today?
Yes, very well, thanks. How are you this morning?
Yes, not too bad, thank you. So, Debbie, tell me a little bit about why you became a mental health first aider. How long have you actually, been part of that within our organisation?
So I've been an MHFA for almost 6 years and actually qualified outside of the organisation originally. I became an MHFA through my own personal and family experience. And to cut a long story short, I decided quite some time ago that I didn't want anybody to feel as alone and without an ability to reach out and have someone to support them as I had done many years ago. And so I've had, as you well know, I love a chat about wellbeing. I've had a love affair with everything wellbeing for probably the past 25 years. And so being able to bring that into our culture here at Pluxee, and also being able to take the MHFA qualification was almost a meeting of minds for me. So that's how I've become to be where I am. Will you share with me, what your journey was until that point and what brought you to becoming an MHFA?
So I've been an MHFA at Pluxee now for just a little under 5 years. I think my kind of motivation was, firstly, from, I suppose, a selfish perspective. I wanted to be able to kind of identify with my own mental health, improve my self-awareness, understand maybe things that I could do to kind of support myself from that perspective. And then obviously, to support others within the organisation in particular, having had challenges myself and been in a place sometimes where I felt like there's nobody out to reach out to, nobody to share my feelings with. There's a lot of stigma attached to how men should or shouldn't talk about their feelings, that whole perception about, us being strong and putting a brave face on, when you could really be struggling inside. So I think I wanted to just kind of give people that confidence to think, look, Bhups is male, he's an MHFA, it must be okay to talk about your feelings, So I think just giving people that confidence and encouragement is quite key to me. Also from cultural background, I grew up in my generation where we always had stiff upper lip. We never ever displayed your feelings and to the wider community or anything like that. So again, it was just a way to kind of break those barriers down. And I've got to be honest, it's probably one of the best things I've done.
It's really interesting. There was a study recently when they looked at how male and female communicate. So I know as a female that I would sit, and most women sit and actually sit opposite each other. We'll make eye contact. We generally have our bodies and feet facing each other. But it was really interesting because actually most men will sit side by side. And that in itself, I think, is really indicative of the way that males are able to communicate with each other. And so having you on board as an MHFA for us, I think, is quite an inspirational thing. We speak all the time about mental health and being an MHFA and what wellbeing means, and we're introducing ourselves today, but actually to come from that personal perspective and the fact that we do want to create a safe, trustworthy, confidential space where colleagues can reach out to us as human beings, as peer-to-peer support, rather than, so just as Bhups and Debs. But certainly for some of the males among us, it can be the scariest thing to reach out for help, but also the bravest thing that you can ever do for yourself. Would you agree?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I think it's just trying to be an example to people that, look, it's okay to talk. It's okay to, it's okay to have your challenges. We're going to obviously touch upon the subject of stress, which is something that plays a massive part in all of our lives. Yeah. And I think it's just about making that it's actually okay to talk about these subjects, taking that stigma away, which is quite key to me. I think that's been a key part of actually my process so far through the last 5 years in being an MHFA. Yeah,
we use that word a lot, don't we? Yeah. Oh, be vulnerable, bring your whole self to work. Well, actually, that can be really scary, especially if you are holding a senior leadership position, or you're managing a team, or you're just new to the business, or it could be any number of things. But actually offering your whole self and being vulnerable and exposing yourself to that space where you say to somebody, you know, actually, I'm not okay today. And having, what I love about what we do at Pluxee and what we do as MHFAs is to be able to create this community where people know, actually, you can come and talk to us, and it is okay if you're not feeling okay that day. And hopefully what we're able to do is to create this space where people come to us before they get to that serious place. We talk about stress. I think most people have that in their vocabulary, you know, and sometimes if you ask somebody in the morning, you know, how are you this morning? Sometimes they will respond, oh, I'm stressed today. But actually, stress is a bit of an umbrella term. You know, I mean, stress can mean many different things, and sometimes you may not want to use the word that you're really feeling, so you'll fill that space with the word stress. You know, but you could be feeling sad, lonely, anxious, depressed, angry even, and none of those words are words that perhaps you want to share. So let me ask you, Bhups, when you are feeling stressed, as a banner, if we take that, what are some of the ways that you might be able to alleviate that stress for yourself and actually help promote your own mental well-being?
Everybody has a different capacity for stress. You know, we refer to it as a stress container.
Yeah.
So I think it's quite key to remember that people handle and how much stress they can take on board differs from individual to individual. So I think it's about understanding yourself and what, you know, where your capacity is and what are you doing to kind of release that stress out as well.
Yeah.
I mean, for me personally, I've always believed in a connection between my physical and mental health.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of goes hand in hand. If I'm feeling good physically, I tend to feel really good mentally as well.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been, you know, a big fan of physical fitness as well. So whether that be going to the gym, you know, playing sports, playing football kind of on a bi-weekly basis as well. And I just find that that gives me that real kind of ability to kind of take the pressures of those days and let them out in a real positive way. But I think the one thing that's quite important is that, you know, we all have different responsibilities in life, you know, whether it be family, our commitments. It's trying to find what suits you best. You know, even if it's just at lunchtime, just getting away after your desk, or if you're working from home, just going for a walk during lunch break for half an hour. Even the impact that that can have shouldn't be underestimated.
I guess I like the physical exercise, and you know, you've mentioned really, which is so important, is that there is no difference really between your, you know, what you mentally experience and what you physically feel. And we know that, you know, even just walking processes motion through your body. Yoga is much more my speed, and that led me through into, you know, qualifying as a meditation coach, looking at how stress affects your body and how you actually feel when you are stressed. And so for me, most mornings start with an early morning meditation, yoga session. I walk. Most lunchtimes, come rain or shine. Obviously, a lot of us are hybrid now. I know you and I both are. So sitting at your dining room table or my kitchen for 8 hours a day, I don't know about you, but my hips get cranky. And so I need to shift. And so I will walk at lunchtime. But also I swim. So having your body immersed in water is also really cathartic. You know, sometimes if you need some comfort, you might go and have a hot bath. You know, that sensation of being held in the water is really good for your well-being. I know if I'm awake at 6, I'll be making lists before I even get out of bed in my head. And if you're already feeling anxious by that point, if your brain is in hyperdrive, then you continue almost your whole day in that fast forward space. And you know, sort of by the time you get home from work, you're exhausted. And it may be that you don't have any energy left to even think about going to the gym or think about going, you know, for a walk. And that's where you need to, you know, really build up your well-being toolkit as a human. So if we use the example of hybrid working, generally we are most days of the week at home. And if I log on for my first morning meeting and don't move again until midday, my energy is low because I've been sat the whole time. You know, when we talk about mental health specifically, we know that your diet is important. We know that exercise is important to get those happy hormones. We know that if you are stressed, that your body goes into fight or flight. They talk about the amygdala hijack, which is the part of your brain that basically hasn't quite developed beyond us being, threatened to be eaten by dinosaurs. And so every time you're stressed, your fight or flight goes up, your body floods with all these unhelpful hormones for the rest of your day. And we know that scientific research tells us that if your body is sat in fight or flight permanently for too long, you can become very poorly physically, very poorly mentally.
That's where I think the self-awareness and self-reflection piece is quite important. And I think that takes a lot of investment, and nobody knows you better than yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's being able to identify those triggers. What's your capacity? What is it that triggers you? We all have, it may be certain people, it may be certain events that trigger that stress in us, and it's being able to understand that and having the self-awareness that, that person may not be good for me. I mean, when we're mentioning that hybrid working, I myself personally, I tend to pop into the office, a couple of times a month. And, I'm a people's person. I love being around people. That's what brought me into the role that I'm in. So, it can be very challenging, sitting there on your, in your kitchen table and, basically not being able to interact too much with other people. But I think that's where we've really kind of internally at Pluxee been really good at building that culture, even in a hybrid working where, we're regularly checking in each other on Teams. We have, fixed meetings on a Monday morning, but on a daily basis, our team will interact with each other. We're encouraged by management to do so. And I think that's really important to be able to just, knowing that there's somebody else on the other end. And, whether it's, just sharing the positive things in the day, the negative things in the day, it still gives you that interaction with one another.
I think we're all really lucky at Pluxee because we all enjoy working with each other. And so we already had a company culture of inclusivity and support and open communication. I think it's really interesting, when you are in the office together, that socialisation, that water cooler moment or kitchen moment, however you want to call it, I think they're the parts as humans that we miss when you're hybrid working, and sometimes you can spend all day working and actually not really speak to another living soul. And it can be I know I found it a little bit challenging sometimes and even a little bit lonely. I might tell you I'm feeling stressed, but actually, am I feeling lonely? Do I need someone to talk to? There are moments when I go to my local shop and I know the chap behind the counter really well now because generally we have the exchange that I would probably have had in the kitchen. But it is that socialisation. And when we are, as MHFAs, I know a lot of our time is spent being observant as well in people's behaviour. But on Teams, or hybrid working in a 2D environment when you're only on a video call, it can be quite difficult to pick up on that type of thing. Would you agree? I think
it's more challenging, but strangely, I've actually experienced over Teams examples myself, where our colleagues have asked me, "Oh, Bhups, are you okay? Is everything okay today?" Because I think sometimes you can pick it up visually by, like you said, someone's, the way that their body shape maybe, are they slumped down? The tone of their voice, and I think it's going back to the point about employers encouraging. Employees to actually, whether it's to take time away specifically in the day, like we do our internal meditation, which you obviously do a great job of hosting yourself, little things like that, which actually are really giving people the, that approval almost, shall we say, permission to be able to spend that time on your well-being as well. This isn't just a case of just sitting at your laptop for 7.5 to 8 hours consistently. It's about taking that time away. And that's where I think employers are really responsible for the culture that they create and the messages that they send out to their employees. I think that's really, really important from that side.
And it's a good point, because actually breaks as well. How often do we get asked, "Oh, have you had your lunch break today?" And even have you had a wellbeing break? And I think the one of the great things about Pluxee and the company culture that we have and the hybrid working is it gives you that sort of work-life balance as well. And if you can create that at home, and it is that permission to know that if you decide you want to split your lunch break and take, maybe half an hour at 11 o'clock to go for a walk, and then maybe half an hour again at 3 to go for a walk, that's okay. I'm really grateful to be able to be in a company where we can have these conversations, and B, to know that we are trusted as human beings to be able to look after our well-being. But we're also reminded, I mean, all the initiatives we have internally. So, we've obviously got us as our MHFAs, and, I think you're a great MHFA, especially being, one of the gents in our organisation. But also we have a wider team among us. We have our wellbeing initiatives, and, you mentioned the meditations that we run. Yes, lots of mindfulness meditation sessions to give you time to pause in your day. But also even down to our wellbeing fund, which we gifted to, aren't we, from our fabulous HR team here, to be able to actually take that money and spend it on something for our well-being outside of the business. But also all the benefits that we talk about with our clients, I mean, we get all of them as well.
Yeah, and I mean, it's really important, I think, is having that access to those benefits as well. I mean, one of my personal favourites being probably the two.
I know.
is the employee assistance program. I mean, somebody who's had to take, who's had counselling previously in the past and really, really reap the rewards of it and seen the benefits of it firsthand.
Yeah.
For me personally, it's a great benefit for us to have access to.
I thought you'd have gone with gyms as your first.
No, gyms will closely come on to
That's not making me chuckle, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, you're touching upon the gyms, the ability to access discounts across the gym. Again, that's also tying into the financial well-being. So it's saving me, gyms are pretty penny nowadays. A lot of people assume that, having certain types of well-being things is always going to cost you the earth, but that's not necessarily the case. It's just that case of creativity and understanding, what is it that your employees are actually asking for? Where are they struggling? What is it that they need support with? I think that's the first place that any employer needs to start.
I think the EAP, every organisation should have an EAP service, the opportunity to give your people access to mental health support by a qualified, individual, to me is priceless. I don't think anybody can ever really say that it's not valuable to their people, because actually, if you look at it from a HR or a leadership or a manager's perspective, if that individual is struggling, that person that they're speaking to really wants them to recover. But also there is the element of productivity in all of this. And we know that, if mental health is left untreated, if physical health is left untreated, if you're not getting any advice, guidance or support, we know that you will become poorly. If you're in a situation where you need, perhaps your financial well-being is not in a great place, and therefore your mental well-being is not in a great place because you can't sleep. We all know sleep is one of the most crucial well-being elements of us as human beings. To have a space where you can go to somebody in your organisation or your employer and say, actually, I need support with this. What can I do? And to know that they have, they've almost caught you before you fall. That to me is what an EAP does. Gyms and cycle to work, we know they're really beneficial physically for your body as well. You can process the emotion, release the happy hormones, the endorphins that you need to kind of get you back through your day. But also it's about that physical well-being as well, moving your body. If you are sat at your desk, and we have quite sedentary lifestyles, as certainly, when you are working in an office, for example, you are sat a lot of the time. And so, again, just equipping your people with the ability to say, okay, well, because you're with us, you get to have this. And I think it can be really underestimated how powerful that can be, from an employee perspective. I mean, my favourite benefit, as we well know, is annual leave. Yes, it's one of those things that perhaps not every organisation has, but I never have enough time. We joked earlier, and I said, I know it does, annual leave, obviously there is a sort of an element of you having to pay for that out of your salary, but I would rather have time with the people I love and make memories with the people I love than to have, all the money in the world and have no time to spend it. I mean, it sounds like a silly analogy, but actually, if you think about it, if you're working full-time most of your working adult life, it's important to look forward to things. And often those things don't have to be big things. They can be small things, and it can be as much as having the wellbeing fund gifted to you, as we're lucky enough to have.
One of the hottest topics at the moment, given the cost of living crisis.
Yeah.
And again, when people are struggling financially, that can have a massive impact on somebody's stress levels. That's an area where, if you're struggling to make ends meet day to day, how do you stretch, make that salary stretch a little further? It's again, that's something that, we again, with the Wellbeing Fund, with things like Cycle to Work. So Cycle to Work is a very interesting solution for me because, I've taken advantage of the scheme myself. Thankfully, the weather's better. I was back out on the bike again over the weekend. Again, that ticks a few boxes. Yes, it helps with that physical health side of things, which, we always try to encourage. But, never underestimate the financial aspect of it, the tax saving element of it as well. Again, it's putting some money back into that employee's pocket as well. So I think it's, for me, when we take it back to the employer, it's about them being able to introduce either whether it's external benefits or internal things that they may do to cover those three key pillars, that financial well-being piece, the mental well-being, and also the physical well-being piece. Because again, it's different things that trigger those stress levels in different people. So, you're never going to get it completely right. But I think if you can cover those three key areas, you've kind of done as much as you probably can from that perspective, if you can really kind of support from those three aspects as well. Yeah,
and it is important, like you say, you're never going to get it right for everybody, but ultimately it's about what value can you bring to your people in the organisation. And, this whole work-life balance that we talk about, there's a lot of talk about it being a myth. You're never going to have a work-life balance. I don't necessarily buy into that. But I think from a HR perspective and from a leadership perspective, it's important to know that if you are having these conversations, that you create an environment where the individual is aware, first of all, as to how to reach out to us. We're quite visible, even though we are hybrid working. Everybody knows within the organisation who the MHFAs are, how to reach us. There's an education that needs to happen around what does an MHFA do. We're not counsellors, we're not therapists. We are in place as a peer-to-peer support to help you and give you some emotional support within the organisation. It's often signposting as well, isn't it? If you have somebody coming to you, might want some information, or perhaps they might experience something with a family member or a friend that they need support with as well. But this whole awareness piece is crucial, I think.
Yeah, I think it's just not about pushing it just when you lead up to Mental Health Awareness Week, which you think, might be the kind of natural way for people to react. I think it's that consistent messaging, raising that awareness. I think it's just making it people aware that, that service is there. People are there to support you. And I think it also comes in with that confidentiality piece as well, where, making them aware that, everything they speak to you about is strictly confidential.
Yeah, and non-judgmental as well.
Yeah.
It is about us being peer-to-peer. We take our work hat off when we have these conversations, and we just are our human selves. I don't think we talk about trust enough these days, and to be able to speak to somebody in a gentle way. We talked about vulnerability, didn't we, at the beginning?
Yeah.
And that's scary. All of these wonderful services are in place, and hopefully you'll never need them. But hopefully that before you reach that stage, we can catch you before you fall, because that's the point. It is the support from one human individual to another, and that's personally for me as an MHFA. I always use the analogy, we're like snow globes, and when we are stressed, it's like someone's giving it a good old shake, and the snow's everywhere. You can't see straight, you can't think straight. That's your snow globe. And then when you find your wellbeing toolkit, so whether it be exercise, whether it be meditation, whether it be enjoying cooking. I know I'm not a great cook. My family will testament to that, but I try. The willingness is there. But ultimately, that brings your snow globe to a point of settlement. And when that settles, and when you settle inside of yourself, you can see more clearly. You can think more clearly. Your fight or flight drops, and your rest and digest comes back in, and your body reaches this beautiful equilibrium where you can breathe freely again. We've known this for thousands of years. We've just forgotten. We don't listen to our bodies anymore. We don't listen to what our bodies are actually communicating to us until our brains start to scream, I can't cope with this anymore, I'm not very well. Stress contributes to some cancers. This is all scientific based. It's not me just piping on what I think. And there are so many wonderful ways that we can counteract it. We've just forgotten all those lessons. And I just think if we know, then it's our duty to share. It's that ripple. Yeah. The ripple effect. I share with you, you share with somebody else. And collectively, as a species, we heal.
Thank you, Debbie. It's been a pleasure, having this last half an hour or so with you. And, your passion for mental health and, all things well-being really does shine through. And I'm, pleasure to be a part of the team with you as well. Thank you.
That's wonderful. So all that's left for us to really say is a final thanks to anyone who's taken the time to join and listen to us talk about all things mental health, MHFA and wellbeing. We hope it's made a difference and it's added some value to your wellbeing toolkit.
Thanks for joining us.
Join us next time to discover how Pluxee UK is putting the X in success, enhancing employee engagement and making life at work more joyful.